Hi everyone, Aaron here, and welcome back to another episode of A-Tek Behind the Scenes. Now, in today's episode, I thought we would explore the topic of scanning. Scanning has become a very fashionable term in recent years, so I thought I would take you through a breakdown of what it is, how you can look to develop it, and what it looks like when it transfers to games. So let's start at the beginning. Scanning. How is it defined? Well, scanning is defined as a self-initiated head movement where a player temporarily looks away from the ball in order to influence their next decision. And what I mean by influence is pick up information that is relevant to what they need to do next, whether that be a shot, a dribble, a turn away from pressure. Now, it's important as coaches that we think about the remnants of the game and how the components can influence the development of the player. And when it comes to developing players, I look at scanning in two ways. I look at it in close proximity, and what I mean by that is developing someone's ability to collect information when pressure is all around them, or we have a more of a wider lens scan. That's where players will look away from the ball and maybe explore the landscape of the pitch to collect the information that might influence the next action. Now, if I'm working in small group play or 1-to-1 or 2-to-1, 3-to-1 or something of that ilk, I will probably focus on close proximity scanning. If I've got a squad practice where I've got maybe 16 players available, then I would look at more wider lens scanning. So in order for me to know that, I need to assess what that topic will be so that I can target the appropriate development. Now, how do we look at scanning from a timing perspective? Well, the best players in the world have this pattern that seems to be consistent, and they time their scans dependent upon where the ball is. So something known as a transit scan is where the ball is in transition from one player to the next, so it's on its way, or the ball is out of the foot of the ball carrier. Now, players who scan well will tend to look back at the ball carrier when they are about to touch the ball, because that creates enough information for them to know that they can prepare the next move. And what I mean by that is that if they look at the ball carrier as they make contact, that next moment is going to be away from the ball carrier's foot. That's an invitation for them to scan away to collect the information that they need before looking back at the ball carrier themselves. So it's finding that pattern in timing that helps to improve the consistency of what they're looking for. Now, from a frequency perspective, the highest performer ever recorded is Xavi Hernández at Barcelona, where he averaged 0.83 scans per second. And if you think about that, in a game, he might touch the ball well over 100 times. So nearly every second, he would be scanning the field to pick up the information needed in order to influence his next decision. Now, if we put that into context, that means for every 10 seconds prior to receiving the ball, he would scan 8.3 times. Which is a phenomenal frequency execution. Now, that helped him to not only understand what was going on from a wide lens perspective, but also being able to understand what was happening in close proximity. So his head was on a constant swivel, but he was collecting information that was relevant in order to make the next actions. Now, the average Premier League midfielder goes by about 7 scans, between 6 and 7 scans for every 10 seconds that they receive the ball. But it's not just about frequency, it's about what they do with that information that makes them of an effective decision maker leading to their next action. Now, one of the most important scans is something known as a critical scan. Now, a critical scan is the last scan a player will make prior to making a decision. And it's this one that tends to have the influence over the outcome. So if players don't use a critical scan that often, it can lead to a turnover in possession. Now, an example that you see on screen now is as follows. You can see that the player will make 2 scans, but the critical scan, the one where the ball is on its way to him, is the one that he didn't do. And that resulted in a turnover in possession. So it's important that you practice critical scans where the ball is on its way and the players will make one final check to make sure things are in position. Now here's a development of the critical scan in some of the small practices that I've done. As you can see on screen, as the player enters towards the ball, they will make 2 scans, one being that critical scan to make sure that the information hasn't changed. So they approach the ball, they make an initial scan to check where the pressure is, and then they'll make one final scan, the critical scan, as the ball arrives. And as you can see, as the video progresses, it helps to influence their decision to turn away from that pressure. And that's vital because it means that they are thinking about something that is relevant to the game and will transition to the game from these practice setups. So in order for them to understand the timing, we work through that process so that on game day, it becomes more familiar for them. Now, when we talk about whether I'm developing close proximity scan or wide lens scan, it will have a relationship of 4 factors. That being the ball, the opposition, the teammates, and the space available. So when you're designing practices, think about what areas you want to target and then build your relationship around those areas there. So if I'm doing some close proximity work, the teammate, the server, will be important, but if it's 1v1, it's more than about where the ball is, where the opponent is, and the space available to attack. So I will prioritize 3 of those areas compared to the teammate section for that development. If I'm doing more wide lens stuff, then teammates and opposition and space all play a part, but there's a higher premium on teammates because there's more of them. So therefore you build your relationships based on the setups that you want.